Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Definitely.
Awesome. Today we're going to tackle a topic that can get a little naughty. Consolidating civil cases in California.
Oh, yeah, it can be a bit of a maze.
Right. But don't worry, we've got some excerpts from legal documents to guide us. So
Okay.
think of this as your legal GPS, helping you navigate this tricky terrain.
I like that.
Our mission today is to figure out what exactly consolidation, when does it happen, and why should you even care?
Great questions.
Let's start with the basics. What is this whole consolidation thing anyway?
Well, you can think about it kind of like organizing a very, very messy desk.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
You've got stacks of papers everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And it's impossible to find anything.
Oh, yeah, I feel that.
So consolidation is like taking those scattered legal issues and putting them together in a way that actually makes sense.
I like that. So less of a messy desk and maybe more like merging lanes on a highway. We've got separate cases, but they're coming together for efficiency, right?
Right. Yeah. That's a really good way to picture it. And just like merging traffic, you need someone to direct things.
A consolidation conductor.
Exactly. And in this case, that conductor is the judge. They get to decide if and how to combine these cases, these legal lanes.
So there's no autopilot here. The judge really calls the shots?
Yep, they have a lot of discretion.
Okay, got it. Now, our legal sources point out two main types of consolidation in California. First up, complete consolidation. Sounds pretty serious.
It is. This is where you take those separate cases and they basically become one.
Whoa, a total legal merger.
Right. It's like having puzzle pieces from different boxes and suddenly realizing they all fit together to make a whole new picture.
So no more separate cases, just one big case. Got it. Can you give me an example of when that would actually happen?
Sure. Imagine a scenario with like 10 people all suing the same company because of injuries they got from a faulty product.
Okay, so 10 separate lawsuits.
Right, but instead of having 10 trials, with complete consolidation, you have one. Saves a ton of time and money for everyone.
Makes sense. So one trial covers it all. What about the other type of consolidation?
That's called coordination. And with this one, the cases actually maintain their own separate identities.
Okay, so they're not merging completely.
Right. But they're still handled together for certain things. Think of it like roommates,
Okay, I'm listening.
They each have their own room, but they share common areas.
So separate spaces, but some shared activities.
Yeah. They might have a hearing together or go through the discovery process as a group, things like that.
So it's all about finding those efficiencies without totally blending everything together.
Exactly. And it really highlights a big question. Why do courts even bother with consolidation?
Right, what's the point?
Well, think about it. Courts are BUSY places. Consolidation helps manage all those cases. Plus, it helps avoid judges making conflicting decisions on similar issues.
That makes sense. It's all about making the process smoother.
Exactly.
So we know why it happens, but how does a case actually get consolidated? Do lawyers just send out a group text?
Huh. I wish it were that easy.
So what's the process?
It all starts with a party, someone involved in one of the cases, filing a motion. It's like a formal request to the court, basically saying, hey, can we consolidate these cases?
So it's not just a casual ask, it's an official legal move.
Right. It's like sending a formal invitation to merge.
Okay, so what does this consolidation invitation need to include?
Well, it can't just say, merge, please. It needs to give everyone a heads up. That's the notice of motion part. Then they got to explain WHY consolidation is a good idea in this case and back it up with evidence.
So basically, lawyers have to be like legal matchmakers, highlighting all the things these cases have in common to make the match.
Exactly. And then there's a hearing where all sides get to make their case. It's not a done deal just because one side wants it.
So it's not a one-sided power move.
Nope. Everyone gets a voice.
It's good.
The judge listens to all the arguments and then makes the call, and if they decide to consolidate, they issue an order outlining exactly how it's all going to go down.
Okay, so the judge really is like that traffic controller, right? Weighing all the factors before making a decision.
Yep, and those factors are super important. The biggest one is whether the cases have common issues of fact or law.
So that's like the foundation for even considering consolidation.
Right. But it doesn't stop there. They also look at things like saving time and money for everyone, preventing conflicting judgments, and making sure that no one gets the short end of the stick because of the consolidation.
So it's all about streamlining the process, but not at the expense of fairness.
Right. And here's where things get a little more interesting.
Uh-oh, I sense a plot twist.
Maybe. Did you know that a judge can actually decide to consolidate cases on their own initiative? No motion required.
Whoa, seriously? So they can just step in and say, all right, everyone, let's shake things up.
Pretty much. It's called sua sponte consolidation.
Sua sponte. Sounds kind of like a fancy Italian dessert.
Right. But it's a legit legal term. It basically means on their own accord. So the judge sees a connection between cases and says, hey, let's handle these together.
So the judge can be like the conductor A&D, the composer of this legal symphony.
Exactly. It's all about making the legal process smoother and more efficient.
Okay, I'm with you. But wouldn't that kind of catch people off guard? Suddenly their case is being merged without any warning.
It could, but the system has safeguards. Even with sua sponte consolidation, the judge has to give all the parties a chance to say their piece.
Okay, so everyone still gets to be heard.
Absolutely. It's all about fairness, even when the judge takes the initiative.
I'm glad to hear that. But what if you really, really don't want your case consolidated? Can you fight back?
For sure. If a party thinks that consolidation is going to hurt their case, they can absolutely oppose it. They'd need to convince the judge that keeping things separate is actually the best way to go.
Okay, so it becomes a legal tug of war.
You could say that. Both sides present their arguments, and the judge makes the final call.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the different types of consolidation, the whole process of how it gets started, even the judge's power to initiate it.
It's a lot.
What's next?
Well, let's dive into some actual examples, see how these concepts play out in the wild.
Sounds good to me. Okay, so we're back and ready to get into some real-world examples of this consolidation thing in action. You know, we talked about complete consolidation and coordination.
Right.
Well, let's see how they actually work, like in a real case.
Okay, so let's say you have a car accident, multiple vehicles involved, and several people get injured.
Ouch.
Yeah. And then all those injured people decide to sue the driver who caused the accident.
So multiple lawsuits,
Yeah.
all stemming from that same accident.
Exactly. And instead of having a separate trial for each person, complete consolidation would mean just one trial for everybody.
So it all gets bundled together.
Right. All the evidence is presented once, the witnesses only had to testify once, and the judge makes one decision about who's at fault and how much they have to pay.
That does sound way more efficient than having, like, 5 separate trials.
Oh, absolutely. And, it's not just about efficiency. It's also about making sure things are consistent.
Okay, I see what you mean.
You wouldn't want one judge saying the driver was 100% responsible and another judge saying they were only 50% at fault.
Right. Yeah, that would be super confusing.
Right. So complete consolidation helps avoid those kinds of contradictory rulings.
Makes sense. Okay, so that's complete consolidation. What about coordination? When would that come into play?
Okay, so imagine a scenario where there's a defective medical device, right?
Okay.
And this device has caused problems for, let's say, hundreds of people all over the country.
Oh, wow.
Each person's experience might be a little different, but the underlying issue, that faulty device, is the same for everybody.
So they all have a common enemy.
Exactly. And in that kind of situation, coordination might be the way to go. The cases stay separate, but certain parts are handled together.
Like what kinds of things would they do together?
Well, they might do something called coordinated discovery.
Which is?
It basically means all the plaintiffs, all those people who are suing, share information and evidence related to that faulty device.
So they're teaming up on the evidence gathering, but their individual cases stay separate.
Exactly. So they benefit from shared resources and expertise, but still preserve the unique parts of their own claims.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. You know, it seems like this whole consolidation thing can really streamline the legal process.
It can.
But I have to ask, are there downsides?
That's a good question. And honestly, it's something the courts have to think about very carefully. One potential downside is that consolidating cases can sometimes make them more complicated.
Really? How so?
Well, imagine trying to wrangle the evidence and arguments for dozens, maybe even hundreds of plaintiffs all at once.
Yeah, that sounds like a logistical nightmare.
Right. It
Yeah.
can be. And that's why judges have to weigh the pros and cons very carefully. They need to be sure it's truly going to simplify things, not create a bigger, messier legal battle.
So like we said before, it's all about balance. Efficiency is great, but not if it comes at the cost of fairness or clarity.
Right. And, there's also the potential for something called prejudice. Prejudice.
Yeah, like if a jury hears about hundreds of people being harmed by the same product,
Okay.
they might be more likely to side against the defendant, even if the evidence in a specific case isn't that strong.
So it's like that bandwagon effect. If everyone else is doing it, it must be the right thing to do.
Exactly. So judges have to be really careful about protecting the rights of everyone involved,
Hmm?
even when cases are consolidated. Everyone deserves a fair hearing.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've explored some real-life scenarios, talked about the good and the maybe not so good aspects of consolidation.
Yeah.
But I'm still curious, what are the actual legal arguments that come up when people are fighting for or against consolidation? Like, what are the specific points they make?
Right. Well, one argument that comes up a lot against consolidation is that potential for prejudice, which we just
Well,
talked about. A party might say, hey, combining my case with all these others is going to put me at a disadvantage.
like their case will just get lost in the crowd. Exactly. They might argue their case is really strong on its own, and lumping it in with others would actually weaken their position.
So basically they're saying, hey, judge, don't let my case get buried under a pile of other cases.
Right. And then on the flip side, the folks who are F for consolidation will often emphasize the efficiency thing. They'll say, look, combining these cases saves time and money for everyone, including the court.
It's like a big let's be practical argument.
Exactly. And they might also argue that consolidation helps ensure consistency. You know, if you have different judges handling similar cases, there's always a chance they'll reach different conclusions. Consolidation aims to prevent that.
So it's about making sure similar cases are treated similarly under the law. Makes sense.
Right. And to really understand how these arguments play out, I think it's time we look at a specific case study.
Okay, hit me with it. Okay, so we've explored the different types of consolidation, seen how it works in real-world scenarios,
Yeah.
and even touched on some of the potential downsides.
Yeah, it's a multifaceted topic for sure.
Absolutely. But now I'm really curious to see how these arguments for and against consolidation actually play out in a real case. It's like we're legal commentators analyzing the strategies and moves of each side.
I like that analogy. Okay, picture this. A bunch of homeowners are all suing the same construction company.
Okay, what went wrong?
Well, they're claiming that shoddy work led to water damage in their homes. Each homeowner situation might have some unique details, of course.
Right, different levels of damage maybe.
Exactly. But that core issue, that faulty construction, it's the same for everyone.
So I imagine the homeowners would be pretty keen on joining forces,
Mm,
strengthen numbers, right?
absolutely. They might push for consolidation, saying it's just more efficient to handle all those claims as one big case.
Makes sense. What kind of arguments would they make to support that?
Well, they could point out that it would be the same experts testifying in each case, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
The same building codes would be relevant, and the same legal arguments would apply across the board.
So they'd be saying, hey, we're all in the same boat here. Let's streamline this process and tackle it together.
Exactly. They'd want to present that united front and really show the court how much damage that construction company allegedly caused.
Okay. But I'm guessing the construction company wouldn't be too thrilled about that, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't they want to keep those cases separate?
You bet. They'd probably argue against consolidation, emphasizing that each homeowner's situation is unique.
Right. Some might have more damage. Some might have taken steps to fix things on their own.
Exactly. They'd try to poke holes in that one-size-fits-all argument.
So they'd be saying, hold on, these cases aren't as identical as you might think.
Right. They might argue that lumping everything together could actually confuse the jury and make it harder to figure out what's fair for each individual homeowner.
So it's a battle of perspectives.
Mhm.
The homeowners want efficiency and collective action, while the construction company is all about individualized attention.
Exactly. And in the middle of all that, you have the judge. It's their job to listen to both sides and decide what's the fairest and most just way to proceed.
Sounds like a tough job.
It definitely can be. Sometimes they'll grant complete consolidation, sometimes they'll go for coordination, and sometimes they'll just say, nope, let's keep these cases separate.
So many factors to juggle. Do you have any examples of real-life cases that illustrate how this all plays out?
Oh, tons. Remember that example we talked about with the pharmaceutical company facing lawsuits over drug side effects? There have been so many cases like that where consolidation becomes a huge legal battleground.
Right, with maybe hundreds, even thousands of people claiming they were harmed by the same drug.
Exactly. In those kinds of cases, the plaintiffs, the people suing, will often push hard for consolidation.
Saying it's the only way to manage such a massive number of lawsuits.
Right. They'll point to all the things the cases have in common. The same drug, the same alleged side effects, the same scientific evidence.
And on the other side, I'm guessing the drug company argues that each plaintiff's medical history and individual circumstances make their case unique.
Exactly. They'll argue that consolidation would create a kind of guilty by association effect.
Like, just because a lot of people got sick doesn't mean the drug is automatically to blame in every single case.
Right. They'd say it's not fair to paint them as automatically liable just because there are a lot of lawsuits.
So these consolidation battles can get pretty intense.
Oh, yeah. You've got potentially millions, even billions of dollars on the line. And the outcome can have huge ripple effects, not just for the people directly involved, but for the legal system as a whole.
It really shows how these legal procedures, which might seem kind of abstract, can have such real-world impact.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that behind every case, there are real people with real stories and real stakes.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up our deep dive into consolidating civil cases, what's the key takeaway for our listeners?
I think the most important thing to remember is that consolidation, it's a powerful tool, but it's not a magic bullet.
Right. It's not always the answer.
Exactly. There are times when it can make things more efficient and fair, but there are also times when it can make things way more complicated or even lead to unfair outcomes.
So it's not a simple yes or no decision.
Right. Ultimately, it's up to the judge to weigh all those factors and make a call. And that call can have a huge impact on everyone involved.
Well said. I think we've given our listeners a lot to ponder today. Consolidation might seem like this technical legal maneuver, but as we've seen, it can have ripple effects that go way beyond the courtroom.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating area of law to keep an eye on, full of twists, turns, and unexpected outcomes.
Absolutely. And on that note, I want to thank everyone for joining us on this deep dive. If you found this topic interesting, I encourage you to explore further. There's a whole world of legal resources out there just waiting to be discovered.
And who knows, maybe one day you'll be the one arguing for or against consolidation in a case that makes legal history.
That's a great thought. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and as always, thanks for listening.